Welcome back to the Distressed Princess. Today I'm doing Grandin Road Christmas dupes. Grandin Road has no shortage of inspiration for beautiful pieces to dupe. So I'm starting out with this first wreath that has the golden deer. This wreath is on sale for only $90.30, but I'm never going to pay that. Over at the Family Dollar store, all of their fall decorations are 50% off. So I snatched up this wreath that was originally $5, which was a great deal to start with, but I only paid $2.50. I chose this wreath for this dupe not only because it was inexpensive, but also because it has this grapevine-y stuff on it that is perfect for where the deer is going to sit. So the first thing I needed to do was remove all of that fall foliage. There was a little bit of hot glue left over, but I'm just going to flip it and use the other side. Here's where you can get real expensive on this dupe, or you can do it very inexpensively like I'm going to do. So the greenery that I'm using came from the Dollar Tree. It is the glittery kind. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do like that this is kind of a cypress, not the usual pine. It's kind of cypress sprigs. So glitter or not, I'm going to use them, but you feel free to go to Hobby Lobby, pick up whatever Christmas greenery that you like. And here is the golden deer. It came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take that bow off of his neck and repaint him another gold. Of course, the bow just pulled right off of him, but it did take a little bit of his original paint. But that's okay because I had already planned on painting him with my own gold paint. Just because he's another glitter product. I don't really want a glitter deer, but to do this inexpensively, he's what I'm using. And since he did have some of his original glitter paint peeled up and that wasn't covering with my gold paint, I'm going to face that part of him toward the back. So I studied the picture from Grandin Road to see how the greenery was, and it's a lot fuller on the top and it kind of tapers down around the sides. So for that look, I'm going to cut some of these sprigs off with my wire cutters, and they will be closer toward that grapevine bottom part. And then it's going to get bushier and bushier as it goes upward toward the hanger. And I'm using green floral wire to attach it all to the wreath. When I come to the topmost part of the greenery that was going to go on the wreath, I left it fully intact and I just wired it completely down on the top. And repeat all that for the other side. And now that I'm looking at it, watching this back, it kind of looks like a clown wig, but it gets better, I promise. The next thing you want to do is take some jute string and you'll wrap that around the whole top like a handle. And I did twice around on mine, so it's 2 layers of wrapping. When I was done wrapping, I cut my jute string and I hot glued the end piece onto the back. And so now it should look like this. And the last step is to attach the deer. I didn't have any luck with hot glue. I couldn't get a good hold. He just wobbled and fell over. So I got my Starbond glue. I should learn to just use that to start with sometimes. It's kind of like a super glue but thicker, and it also has this spray. So you put the super glue on one of the pieces and you put the spray on the other. So the glue I used went on the wreath, and then I put the spray on his feet, and he stuck so great to this wreath. This saved my bacon one more time. The Starbond, I definitely recommend. And so here is my version of the $90 Grandin Road wreath. It only cost me $11.25. Oh my goodness, how I am such a sucker for a gingerbread house. So this Christmas, I'm going to dupe my own. I've had this birdhouse that I got from a Dollar Tree Plus that was only $5, and it may not be the exact same layout as the houses on Grandin Road, but I'm going to paint it and decorate it up just like those. So as you saw, the first thing I did was cut off its hanger, and there's a hole there where the hanger was, but it will get covered up. Next, I'm going to mix some paints to get a gingerbread color. I know that there is a color called nutmeg in the folk art acrylic paint section of Walmart, but I don't have that one. So I'm mixing chestnut and I think light mocha to try to get a gingerbread color. I painted the whole house except for the windows, the door, and the steps. Then I painted the windows with white acrylic paint and the steps with the same white paint. And for the door, this Caribbean blue. Next, we're going to work on the decoration part, and you'll be needing some of this caulk that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I did at first try to use this straight out of its squeeze tube right onto the roof of the house, but that didn't go very well. It really needs to be a thinner consistency, so that's why I'm squeezing out this whole tube into an old dish, an old bowl. I'm going to mix about 2 tablespoons of white acrylic paint in with it, and then I'm going to mix it up really well, and then put that into a piping bag, and then it came out perfectly. It was a lot easier to work with. And the trick to getting anything inside of a piping bag is to put it down inside of a cup. I'm using a coffee mug, and that way you can use both your hands to scrape out the icing or whatever. And Piper just came to see if there was icing for him to lick, but it wasn't. So anyway, yeah, so here is my piping bag ready to cut the tip, and I'm not using a special decorator tip. I didn't have one small enough, but if you do, feel free. I'm just going to cut the end off of this bag and start piping. Then with steady, even pressure on the bottom end of that piping bag, just draw on your little doodads right onto the roof. And mine weren't perfect, but you know, I'm never looking for perfect. I was happy with how it turned out. Next up, I'm going to do the garland that goes around the door. And for that, I'm using some of this lightweight spackle from the Dollar Tree. And it becomes a fluffier consistency when you pipe it onto a project. So I thought it would make a better garland than that slickish caulk stuff. So the same principles though, just mix some of that spackling with a little bit of green acrylic paint and put it into a piping bag, and then you can pipe a garland. I do apologize. I lost the footage where I was piping the garland, but really it was just making little swirly marks around the door with that green spackle. And then I used some of this red fabric paint from the Dollar Tree to just put on some little berries. Then I went back to the white caulk mixture, and I started doing some like melted icy snow dripping from the windows, like the one on Grandin Road. The next thing I did was mix up a little bit of gray paint with that spackling and put it into a piping bag, because the picture on Grandin Road, those houses had some little planters on the fronts of the houses, so I'm going to make a gray planter. So how I did this was I took a blob of that gray spackle, and then I used a popsicle stick to shape it into the planter shape. Then I mixed up a darker green spackle to use for the plant that's in the planter. And this time I didn't use a piping bag though. I just used a popsicle stick and just swirled it on top of the planter. And I did get a little messy with that gray spackle, so I went back in with some of my brown gingerbread color paint and I just painted over it. The next part totally makes no sense because it's winter, it's snowing. There shouldn't be flowers on the bush, but I wanted there to be flowers on the bush, so I used some pink acrylic paint in the back end of a paintbrush just to tap some little pink dots onto my little plant. Now I'm mixing up another whole jar of that spackle with a little bit of white paint to do some fluffy white snow for the ground. And so I'm doing this in a piping bag, and then I'm going to pipe that all around the base of the house. I did put some wax paper under my house so that it wouldn't drip over onto my table. And do be aware that this is going to have to sit for probably 24 hours for it to harden completely. So don't be touching or messing with this gingerbread house for a long bit until this has set. Now, while that snow was setting up, I wanted to make some drippy icicle snow stuff that would be hanging off the roof. And the way I did that was that I measured the roof, the front and back and the sides, and I'm using my ruler to use my glue gun to pipe out a line on this silicone mat and just draw those icicles and whatever melty things the length that I need them to be to go on the roof. And when they dry, they peel right up and they can be glued onto the gingerbread house. But first you'll want to paint them, and I used white acrylic paint. Then hot glue them right on, and isn't that neat? This is the first time that I've tried doing this hot glue trick with anything, and I'll be doing it a lot more. The next morning, after the spackle had set up and dried, then I was going to dust the roof with some of this pink glitter. And the way that I'm going to get the glitter to stick is by using a really thin coat of this watered down white school glue, but I think you could probably use spray adhesive or Mod Podge. Then just the tiniest bit of sprinkles of that glitter on the roof, just a dusting, and I also put some on the ground snow. There's only a couple of little details left to do and the gingerbread house will be done. I used a little snippet of some garland to make a wreath for the front door. I just trimmed and trimmed and trimmed until it was just the right size for our little house. But remember, this is a birdhouse, so there's a hole in our door. So I see that the wreath will fit, that's fine. But I'm going to now make a window for the door, and I'm using a jumbo size craft stick to do that. I'm just going to cut one end off and it's going to be an arched window. Isn't that the perfect thing to cover up that hole? So now I'll paint that white. Back to the tiny wreath, I figured it needed a little ribbon to hang on. So I cut the tiniest little sliver of ribbon for the wreath to hang with. And last minute I decided there should be snow on the wreath, so I painted some white acrylic paint on there. Then I glue the window on the door, and then I glue the wreath to the window. As for the second floor, the little hole in the dog box up top, I figured it was the size of a nickel. So I traced out that nickel onto a little piece of cardboard, and then I painted that piece with the gingerbread color paint. After that paint was dry, I drew on the little details for the window with a white metallic marker, which didn't show up very good, so then I went back and did it with white acrylic paint. And finally glued the last piece onto the gingerbread house. Oh yeah, and the final detail, the doorknob. I didn't know the entire time what color I wanted that doorknob to be, so I saved it for last and I just went with black. I spent $8.75 to make my gingerbread house. After all the details in that gingerbread house, I needed an easy dupe, and so this is the easiest one of the day. The price of this pom-pom wreath is shocking, especially when you can go on Amazon and buy those pom-poms and just glue them to a Dollar Tree wreath. And I had those pom-poms in my cart, but they were not going to get here before I needed to film this video. So I decided I would make my own pom-poms. So this is just a tutorial in how I use this pom-pom maker. I'm using this gray yarn because I had already used up all of my white making the pom-poms. But this pom-pom maker is really simple to use. They even have one of these for sale at the Dollar Tree. It's smaller, of course, so it'll make smaller pom-poms. But you just wrap the string or the yarn around each arm of the pom-pom maker and then close it shut. Cut your string or your yarn. I keep wanting to call it string. And you definitely want to use yarn to make these pom-poms. And then you cut through the middle, which makes the little pom-pom pieces. And then take a separate piece of yarn and it goes up through the middle of the pom-pom maker in between those arms. And then you tie it with a double knot. Open up the pom-pom maker. It comes apart. And there you have your pom-pom. And the last step in pom-pom making is to give them a haircut. Then just hot glue your pom-poms onto your wreath. This wreath form came from the Dollar Tree. You may notice that some of my pom-poms are a different color white because I was using different kinds of yarn that I already had, but I think that just gives more interest. Then I tied a simple bow out of this burlap kind of ribbon that is just a scrap piece of ribbon that I already had, so the length was already cut. I was lucky that there was enough of it to make this bow, and that's it. And I will leave a link in my description box below for the pom-poms that you can buy on Amazon so you can skip making your own if you want to. I wound up using 6 of the balls of yarn from the Dollar Tree. If I would have had to go out and buy them and the wreath, the cost would have been $8.75. This dupe is another pretty easy one. It's this twinkle snowflake light, and the price for these, that is only for one. So depending on what size you buy, it's between 40 something and 80 something dollars. But watch this. Here is a nice decent size plastic snowflake from the Dollar Tree. It is one of the prettiest ones that I have seen there because it looks like actual ice. It already has a place where you can string a ribbon through, which this ribbon came from Dollar Tree as well. And this is a battery pack rice light set that I got at the Family Dollar store for $5. And I'm hot gluing them strategically all around the one side of the snowflake. So this lit up snowflake is going to hang in my living room window, and the battery pack is going to rest on the window ledge. Here's a look at it in the daytime. I just hung it straight from the curtain rod. And here it is at night, all lit up. This DIY only cost me $7.50. Now let's take a look back at all of our Grandin Road dupes today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Give me a thumbs up if you liked these DIYs. I'll be back next week with more Christmas DIYs, but in the meantime, if you want to see another video right now, click this link that I provided for you right here, and I'll see you next time. Bye!